Hi guys, thank you for being here. We're one of the last panels. Can everyone hear me okay? Got it? So thank you for sticking through it. I'm sure you had a long day. I want to have the guys introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about how they got here. So, on the move. When did you start? What was the story?
On the Move has been in that's hot. On the Move's been in business for 26 years. We're a truck leasing company, specialty truck company located in Bernie, Texas. So those of you who are familiar with San Antonio, just west of San Antonio off I-10, we're the fourth largest truck rental fleet in the country. We about 6 years ago saw how hot food trucks were at that time. Is it still a fad? Is it a phenomenon? What's going on? And we realized that we wanted to jump into that market and provide that type of product. So we launched a food truck with a slide out, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, at the National Restaurant Association show in Chicago in 2012, and have just been overwhelmed with response ever since. Catering to startup food truck entrepreneurs, aspiring business owners, universities, restaurant groups, franchise groups, and so on and so forth. The rest is history. We've been part of this event here locally for the last 5 years and have done well here. And so we'll talk more about how we can help you out here shortly.
Eric?
My name is Eric Silverstein. I started Peach Tortilla food truck back in 2010 when food trucks were really getting hot. We've been able to grow the business over the last 8 years. So we have 2 food trucks. We have a restaurant on Burnett Road in Austin. We have a licensed unit at AVIA in front of Gate 7, and then we have a separate catering business and event space called Peach Social House, and we have about 40 to 50 employees that work for our catering division. So that's where we're at.
My name is Keith Hill. I started a food truck in 2010. I've got a barbecue food truck, a Mediterranean food truck, and now I have a brick and mortar. Before that, I was in the liquor business for 22 years. And in 2012, I was co-founder of the San Antonio Food Truck Association.
Keith, can you tell us a little bit more about what the association does?
It just kind of gives a voice to the food trucks here. We work a lot with the city, great relationship with the health department, the fire department. Should I tell them the new? This just transpired at the end of last month. And so if you're not from San Antonio, I would definitely look into it. The 2018 International Fire Code, for the first time ever, included things for food trucks. So all the cities are going to start adopting that. And we negotiated with the fire department. One of the things in there is they're going to require a Vent-A-Hood and Ansel system in all new trucks. So in San Antonio, what they did, they grandfathered all the trucks that don't have it now. So as long as you keep your license current, you're grandfathered in. But if you let your license lapse, yes.
But if you're a new food truck coming to town and you're getting licensed in the city,
You will be required to have a Vent-A-Hood and Ansel system.
So what does a system like that cost?
5 to 10,000. Yep. So if you're not from San Antonio, look it up because, like I said, all the cities are going to start adopting it. And as an association, we went to them and sat down with them and negotiated.
so I've been working on a 3-day pass on a weekly basis. I'm not registered with the city yet as a food truck, but I've been working on 3-day event passes at a place called the Charity Bar down by the Alamo Outdoor Show. Would that be considered as some of this hidden?
So you have temporary permit, 3-day.
3-day, yes.
Be careful on that because
Yeah.
in the city codes, you're only allowed 8 a year.
Yes. I completely understand that.
Correct. Now that'll bypass all that. The temporary permit will bypass that.
So I don't have an answer system. I have a benefit. I don't have an answer system. So when I do grandfather in with that criteria,
Well, with the temporary permit, you won't need that. It'll be just like setting up a tent.
but my idea is eventually to get a full license.
You you will have to have it then. Yes.
So we did want to open it up to questions, just like Chef did. You're good. So does anybody have any questions for the three guys up here? I mean, they're full of knowledge right now, so get them while they're hot. Nope. Yes, ma'am. What do you have to consider for a first-time full truck? I mean, from start to bottom? So mistakes that people should learn from.
Well, I think one of the things on the manufacturing side or design side is you want to limit your menu. You want to make sure that you have the right power requirements for what you're putting in the truck. There's so many people that come from specifically brick and mortar into a food truck think that they can do everything that they do in their brick and mortar and do it in a truck. And it's certainly not as easy as putting a restaurant, picking it up and putting wheels on it. So you have to take precautions. We run full electrical schematics to make sure your power requirements are correct for the generator, your consumption rate on the fuel is correct, that you're not going to run out of fuel real quick. Gauges to let you know how much water you have left in your tank and that sort of thing. But do your homework, limit your menu, and these guys can talk more about how important that is. So that will help you control your food cost and give you a little bit more space inside the truck.
I would say make sure you set the proper expectations going into it. You're not going to retire off a food truck. You need to have an end game, and that's what I tell everyone. Whether that's a brick and mortar or a product line or a catering business or whatever, if you don't have an end game, it will not work. It just won't. And understand that just like any other business, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And in the food truck, it's a very hot marathon. And some days can feel really long. And it's tough to make money out of food trucks. The margins are razor thin. I mean, way thinner than restaurants, right? In restaurants, you can push much more volume, eat more dinner traffic, booze. You can have higher PPAs. You can tip credit your front of the house staff. I mean, there are way more opportunities to make money in a restaurant. But in the food truck, you got to run it lean and mean, and you got to know that it's a 2, 3, 4 year road to get into a brick and mortar.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am. So range on investment.
Yeah, it's so what. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider, whether you're a restaurant group wanting to expand into a food truck, and do you want to lease a truck, finance a truck, do you want to just go pick up a used truck? On our side in manufacturing, not every used truck works. You got to look at height restrictions, you got to look at gross vehicle weight ratings to make sure you're not stacking or putting too much equipment inside the truck, how wide it is, can it roll down the road safely. Sometimes a trailer could be easier to go that route if you're parking and not moving in a lot of cases. On the new side, you can get up into the $100,000 to $200,000, $300,000 range with some of the innovations that are coming out. On the used side, $50,000 to $80,000, I would guess. On a lease to own, maybe anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 a month. And like Eric said, the margins are razor thin. So you want to make sure that what you're cooking on the truck is relative to what you're paying for the truck.
So what are they? Negative. I mean, no, I'm not. I could just only speak from my experience. It took me. I didn't take a salary for myself, I would say, until year 3.5. And the first 9 months to a year, we lost money. I would say maybe 10% if you're lucky. But again, it's. How are you managing your prime costs, and are you working the truck? That would be my first question. Are you building yourself into the labor model, or are you hoping that management does it, and you pay all your managers on the truck. But going back to your first question, you know, you have the option of starting in a trailer or a food truck. I would say absolutely don't start in a food trailer because I think you limit your opportunities. And you know, there are the Franklin barbecues and the Valentina's barbecues of the world that, you know, strike gold, but 95% of them don't. At least with the food truck, you can control your destiny. And then that's where it really gets interesting because most of the trucks on the road, you know, they could be $20,000 trucks or they could be $120,000 trucks. I would say that if you're spending less than $50,000 on a food truck, expect a high repair bill. And so you're gonna either eat it up front or you're gonna eat it down the road. We ate it down the road. You know, I didn't have the money to buy a $120,000 food truck, so we custom built 2 trucks that were about $70,000, and the base truck was $10,000. And we knew we were gonna have to spend a lot of money down the road to repair them, and we have, but we were lucky enough to be profitable enough to get to where we wanted to be first. So, you know, you either pay for it early or you pay for it later.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
I kind of had a question about, you know, you're eating that cost later on. What was that kind of expense? Was it just the generator completely falling apart? Was it gauges? What was that?
Well, generator is a great point. I mean, you think about a generator. A generator is meant to be a backup power source. That is what a generator is supposed to do. On a food truck, it is a primary power source, which is not supposed to be, right? So unless you have shoreline power, unless you can plug your vehicle into an outlet, which most vehicles are incapable of because they generate and use so much power, you have to have a special 3-prong outlet. You're going to run off your generator. So your generator immediately is going to need to get serviced. And depending on how your manufacturer builds it into your truck, a lot of times to service it, it's built incorrectly into your vehicle. So to change the oil, you have to take the entire generator out. This is something I've seen with a lot of trucks. So generators, a lot of repair. Eventually, you know, you have to replace parts in them. But I would say just your basic standard vehicle maintenance, your tires, your engine, your transmission, all those things eventually will go, your brakes, and then your equipment on your truck. If, you know, I always say this, the equipment that's on a food truck is not meant to be on a food truck. It's not meant to be hitting bumps on the road and going up and down. So you could buy a true fridge and spend a shitload of money on it, but ultimately it has a chance of breaking down. So we had to repair a lot of our equipment too.
Sorry. Is there a source to get basic information starting with primary source?
Yeah, our website, onthemovefoodtrucks.com, has a lot of good information on trucks themselves, standard features in the truck, generator options, like Eric was saying. Food Truck Empire has always been a good resource. Roaming Hunger has always been a good resource. So Food Truck Empire, Roaming Hunger have been good resources. And then again, onthemovefoodtrucks.com. And of course, we offer advice as well. So now I want to go back real quick, though, to the thin margins, razor thin margins. He was talking about getting foot traffic. If you're you can't forget, if you have a brick and mortar and you're expanding your brand, you can't forget not only the tangible side, but the intangible side of how much marketing and exposure you get while you're out doing that, or expansion demographic studies, or how much money do you lose if you have multiple locations and you're remodeling a fast casual concept. So there's a lot of different ways on the an operator only, I guess, would experience a lot of that, but on the brick and mortar side, when you're expanding your brand, I think there's some ways to account for that, and then as well as including and incorporating corporate lunches and really planning your month out or your 2 months out and going to and finding business relationships with, you know, Citibank and Chase Bank and some of these big restaurant or offices to help with their corporate lunch. I mean, employers don't want employees to leave campus. They want them to stick around because they're getting back 5 minutes late to lunch every day. And so if you can park a truck downstairs and support their crowd of 50 to 100 people, then that's a good source of income there.
How do you go about getting those type of like contracts? Because I know, like with the military on Fort Hood, we go and bid on the contracts to get on base for food trucks. But if I want to just do it on the weekend, like on 6th Street or something, how do I go about going to speak with
could just tell you how it works in Austin. I mean, it's just there's no roadmap. It's just a street hustle. You know, I mean, I can tell you that in 2010 when we first got our first location on 6th Street, a friend of mine, we had a mutual friend introduced me to Matt Lucky, who owns a lot of bars in Austin, and Stubbs was on their way out of Star Bar, and so Matt was like, "You want to give this a shot?" And I was like, "Yeah, we want to do some late night stuff." And so we ended up parking it back at Star Bar, which after we left was Valentina's, and after they left was Tumble 22. So good brands were there. But it's more about who you know. You can't legally, in Austin, you can't. There is no real street food in the sense that you cannot park on the street. It's illegal to vend on a public street, so you have to be on private property. So eventually, you're knocking on doors, bar owners, and you're saying, hey, there's no added cost to you. If anything, we'll pay you some rent. We'll bring in some traffic, hopefully. And a lot of bar owners see it as an asset to them because most bar owners want no part of food. They want no part of the restaurant business. They want to be a bar. So a lot of them see it as an asset. So, but as far as approaching them, that would be on the operator.
You just go approach whoever you want, whoever.
Yes.
You just go from door to door to door to door.
Absolutely.
Until somebody says yes.
Absolutely. That's the answer.
I mean, on the flip side, you could also try to see if there's an association like Keith's set up here in San Antonio that can make those connections for you. I mean, is that kind of...
Well, I get calls all the time. San Antonio is a lot different than Austin. I get calls from bar owners all the time. And San Antonio, like I said, completely different than Austin. Late night, you're sitting outside of a bar. They want $1 and $2 tacos. A $10 barbecue sandwich and a side, they don't want that. So your margins are even thinner on tacos. In San Antonio, also different than any other city. You can park on the street to vend, except in the downtown district. You have to be a member of the downtown food truck program in San Antonio, and then there's designated spots. They put you on a schedule. But if you want to vend downtown in the downtown business district, you have to be on private property. And legally, to be on private property, you have to have a notarized letter from the property owner saying you can be there. You have to have permission to use the restrooms. There's a lot involved other than just pulling.
There was a question out back.
Were not designed to be on a food truck. So what are some ways that you adapted kitchen equipment like knives, refrigerators, and so on? How have you adapted that from the restaurant to the food trucks?
Well, a lot of it trial and error, really. The equipment is getting better. It holds up better. You storage for all your knives and all that. But still, it's hard to manufacture something that is going to be vibrating all the time. You're going over bumps. You go over a speed bump, and everything in your truck or trailer moves. It's getting better, but it's still.
How do you adapt to that?
Well, everything has to be strapped down. When they build a truck, I'll let Robert, talk to that. But everything has to be strapped down.
So we'll put extra support in the floor and the wall. We'll buckle and fasten refrigerators up top, not just down to the floor, but we'll fasten them all the way through the sides of the truck if need be. Vibration control on generators, rubber mounting systems to help with that vibration control on the generator. Electronic components we do as well, rubber mounting on any in our trucks we have a lot of technology, so we introduce DVRs and point of sales and sound systems and all kinds of crazy electronic information or equipment. And so lips on shelves could go a long way. If you get a shelf from A-Smart or from Webstront mounted upside down, there's a natural lip on the bottom of every shelf. You can also get shelves that pitch, a little bit back toward the wall, so they'll pitch 5 or 10 degrees back toward the wall. Closed cabinets have been very big. Not a lot of people like working out of closed cabinets, but a simple magnet instead of a latch, so when you turn to grab something, you're just pulling it open. That helps with knives and small wares. But you're right, mounting for refrigeration, griddles, fryers to the floor, nothing can be on casters. You got to make sure everything's mounted down correctly, and that's been a struggle on my side because everybody wants to put, we had a guy the other day that wants equipment, but he wants to change it out constantly. That just doesn't work. So,
I mean, I think that goes back to like making sure your menu is 5, 10, 6 items tops that you can switch in and out. I mean, because if you're trying to make fries and you don't have room for a fryer, you're just kind of setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the planning. Like Eric was saying early on, is that you want to have a plan. This is a business. You got to treat it like a business. Whether it's how versatile your menu is and how you're going to help control your cost of goods, how you're going to schedule. I mean, you do have to knock on doors, and every municipality is different as to where they let you operate. But you have to pick up the phone and call HR departments at a big business. The HR departments love it. They see it as a perk for their employees. It's not as hard to get into those places as you think. And when you're there, go to the next floor, take a few samples, pass them out to the next floor, which may be a law firm, and let them know you're going to be there. And so you get creative more in that sense. Again, that doesn't work in every municipality, but a lot of our successful operators don't generally have a problem if you're willing to smile and dial and bang down some doors.
I want to add something to that. The food truck business is still very much like the Wild Wild West. There are no standardized regulations for how to build a food truck, right? You take a shell vehicle, you slap equipment onto it, and then it gets permitted by the health department and the fire department. In LA or in California, Weiss, Armenco, the original OG food truck Lonchera manufacturers, they had custom equipment that was built on food trucks. So I operated off a Weiss food truck from like the 90s when I opened. It was a custom fryer, a custom flat top, a custom steam table that was built and welded into the food truck. The problem with that is, one, Austin requires you to have an independent inspection of that, which costs like thousands of dollars if you want to operate out of one of those. And two, if one of those things fails, you're kind of screwed because you have to have a really good technician who can work on that type of equipment as opposed to just a Frymaster fryer or something like that. So to answer your question, you just kind of have to adapt because there's so many manufacturers, and at the peak movement, I visited Houston to get our truck made, and there were just like 3 or 4 just chop shops, people would buy the food trucks there and then they'd break down and stuff. It's changed a lot, and I think in 5 or 10 years we're going to see much more standardization. But for right now, literally almost every food truck that I see in Austin is very different.
There was a question back here.
Hiring and maintaining and keeping employees. Where do you find employees in food trucks? Restaurant, you're open 7 days a week.
Sure.
Food trucks, hours are different. How do you keep employees?
Well, I think right now it's hard to find people. It certainly is hard. I can tell you that when we were in the food truck, we found people through the culinary schools. Those kids seemed interested. A lot of them wanted to own their own food trucks, so a couple ended up leaving me and starting their own food trucks. But like Le Cordon Bleus of the world, they're not around anymore. The culinary schools are going out of business. It's really a unique individual. Most people don't want to work in food trucks. It's too hot and it's dirty work. I have like 45, 50 catering employees and none of them want to work in a food truck or a kitchen. So I don't have a good answer for that. I really don't. I think you just have to find some really unique individuals who are really passionate about food trucks and food, and then from there it's on you to develop a culture where they enjoy working with you in a food truck.
It's even in the restaurant business, it's hard to find people to work. I guess that's just the state we're in right now. It's so hot in Texas, like Eric said. It's 130 degrees in a food truck. I pay some of my people 10 to 12 an hour.
Oh, there's one back there.
Are you talking San Antonio, Austin?
I'm in Dallas, so I know the big
Correct. And in San Antonio, you don't. You have to, if you're a mobile kitchen, you have to prepare everything on your truck. They don't require, they do require a commissary. You have, in San Antonio, you have to go to one of 6 approved commissaries, but it's not a true commissary. We call it a service commissary. You pay $150 to $200 a year. You dump your gray water, you fill your fresh water, and you dump your grease. That's it.
Austin's different.
Well, yeah, in Austin you have to get a food enterprise permit if you want to use a commissary, but I would say absolutely get a commissary, a real commissary, not a commissary where you park at and you dump your gray water and you dump your grease and you clean your trucks. I mean, I would say we tried to do everything off the truck for about 2 or 3 months, and we were running like extension cords out the windows to plug into a parking lot, and trying to like pressure cook everything to get it done quicker, and it was just complete madness. We had to do it out of necessity at the time, but commissary kitchen would be the way to go. And you batch your product, you take it, load it onto the truck, and then what we did every night was we never left anything on the truck. We would take it all off the truck, put it into refrigeration inside the commissary, because we didn't know if a breaker would get tripped or somebody trip on the wire leading out the truck or something. You wait, you come back in, you got no refrigeration, you're screwed. Commissaries are really rough in Austin. The biggest problem I see is that these commissary owners, they take, all money is good money. They take money from everywhere. Oh yeah, we give you 2 hours of prep here, 2 hours prep here, but they don't want to spend the money to have someone manage the commissary, which is the biggest flaw. So these commissaries ended up becoming these complete shit shows, where you come in the next day and somebody broke into your product, or somebody used your pot and pan and it's dirty, So you just got to learn to live with that existence, But in terms of batch cooking, you got to be efficient. If you batch cook, if you can minimize your prep to 2 or 3 days a week, get all your prep done, then you're minimizing your costs and you're maximizing your bottom line margins.
I don't know, what trends do you guys see coming up? And Eric, would you ever go back into a food truck?
I love food trucks. I really do. And I just want to be realistic about the difficulties in food trucks. I had 2 guys that worked for me that spent $70,000 on brand new trucks, and they were both on Craigslist within 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
So I want to be realistic about what you're getting into. If you're smart about it and you have a business plan, it works.
Yeah.
It does work. I wouldn't be here without a food truck. And it's funny because there's a giant picture of Roy Choi there, and I was watching Roy Choi videos in 2009. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here right now. I was inspired by his journey. So it does work. Would I go back into it? I would not want to start another food truck. I'm 35, I have a kid, I have a wife.
Yeah.
I can't in my life now.
No.
But I'm an advocate for food trucks. I certainly am. I just want to be realistic about the challenges involved.
I think people do get kind of starry-eyed about the lower overhead and kind of jump into something without having that really thought out plan. And that's what I've seen, at least here in San Antonio. We had a big influx, and then people realizing, oh wow, this is 130 degrees.
Robert probably sees a lot
Yeah.
wide range of people.
Yeah, food trucks used to be that food trucks were, somebody that would hop in the truck in their driveway and go out and find the business and hustle the streets and bring home what they can for their family. But I think that's changed over time. I think people are so much on the go nowadays and move as fast as their smartphones or computers let them, to where they're not sitting down. So we're seeing more in our industry, fast casual restaurant groups, universities, school districts. We're seeing more big business get into it on my side than the individual operators, although we get plenty of interest from that crowd. It just seems like there's more bigger business, bigger brands joining the fight on the road, and they're treating it more, like I said earlier, as a way to expand their brand and earn a little bit more revenue and have franchisee support and things like that. But food trucks, going back to Eric's 130 degrees, they are hot. We generally put ACs on all of our trucks, but it's a small insulated box. We, as builders, insulate the walls, the ceiling, the floor, and so it's not about substituting the hot air for cold air. It's about extracting hot air. So one of the things I would encourage you guys is, no matter who you get a truck from, hopefully it's us, but to talk to them a little bit about the pros and cons of, loading up ACs. Is it worth spending the extra money, or is it better to extract air a different way with added rooftop fans or vents? We wanted to be the first the first company to solve that problem. We talked to reefer companies, refrigeration units. We wanted to vent cold, blasted air all down the trucks, and it just doesn't happen that way. So keep that in mind. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I mean, we see it. A lot of people will put one in for employee relief, and a little tip for those of you who have a truck: if you close off the side, the rooftop vents that come out of an AC unit, to where just the downdraft units are on, you can get under there as an operator and get a little bit of relief right before you go back to cooking. So, but I mean, other trends we're seeing in the industry is mobile ordering. You're seeing electronic menu boards put out in front of food trucks, touchscreen menuing systems on the side of food trucks for customers to order their own food with back-end, mobile applications on their smartphone. So let's just say you're at an apartment community or a business park and an employee saw you there. They can then get on their smartphone, follow you, and order their food and come pick it up. Our food trucks, as you know, have patented slide-out technology, so you can be eye to eye and eye level with your customer and create more crew space inside and room for larger equipment. You're seeing mobile prime power generators used more frequently, and actually EPA is putting a crackdown on the use of standby units now. They're requiring for Tier 4 units and mobile prime powered units. So the use of a mobile generator on a mobile vehicle no longer are allowing you to just wheel up a portable generator and plug into the side of your truck. So keep that into consideration. But there's just a lot more technology that we as food truck builders and operators have to keep up with.
What's up? What was the question?
Mobile apps for food trucks? Yeah. I use Uber Eats, but we use them for our restaurant. Same with Favor, but I know that I would imagine if you're a stationary food truck or trailer, it's a little bit easier. But if you're mobile, I'm what's that? Stationary? I think it works pretty well. Because Uber Eats allows you to turn it on and turn it off the app whenever you want. So you pick and choose when you want deliveries taken. So I don't see why it wouldn't be functional. I think it really depends on your brand and your food.
There's some marketing devices out there too that you can get to put on your truck as a hotspot, and then when certain cell phones are in your area, you can ping them with text messages or ads to come eat at your truck or a coupon. We use that a lot on our side, on prospecting side. In fact, it's probably all around this building right now. So consider that. It's probably a marketing company that you would go to get a hotspot device where you can send text messages and alerts out and ads to people that are scrolling the internet.
We've got about 5 more minutes. So any big questions? You've got them for now.
What is my business is called the Peach Tortilla. So yeah. Oh, thank you.
So what was your end goal? That's kind of what you mentioned earlier.
My end goal?
Yeah.
My end goal has always been a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
But just so what ended up happening was about 2 years in, we were really struggling to figure out how to make it worth our while. And so we ended up really focusing on private events, catering, and so we ended up building a catering company before we ever opened a restaurant. That was never our intention. It was a means of survival, but then we ended up having a lot of catering employees and decided like, well, hey, we have to foster their growth and give them opportunity to grow, so we built a huge catering company. So now we have a 7,000 square foot space that houses our catering company and our event space. And so now we're an events and catering company as well. But it was always to open a restaurant. And I always tell people that we opened a restaurant eventually out of ego largely, in the sense that catering companies have better margins than restaurants. But most people open restaurants because it's your name.
Right. I mean, and when did the airport come along? I mean, was that another thing like ego-based or?
No, the airport to me, it's a licensing deal like most airport locations. There are 3 or 4 major operating companies like Delaware North, HMS Host, Paredes that run these units. For us, it was like, for me, I'm big on impressions and eyeballs, and so at the airport with so many people passing through ABIA, to me it was kind of a win-win. We could get our name out there, a lot of people trying our food, and get paid for it. But obviously there's a lot of operational issues with trying to be in the airport because they're not your employees, and so it is very stressful to make sure that our quality is upheld and our brand is upheld.
That's true. Any last words? I mean, any last bit of advice from y'all, from each of you?
It sounds like, I don't know, I guess at times we've been a little discouraging to people. I think, according to Intuit, $3.2 billion by the end of 2018 food truck revenue across the country. So there's money to be made. I think what we're speaking to is you have to treat it like a business. You have to set your expectations properly, hire the right staff, and have a plan, right? So plenty of money to be made, and whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're a business wanting to go expand and get out there and grow, you can do it. You just have to have a plan for it.
I mean, I would just reiterate, I think running a food truck business is like running any other startup, except you're exposed to the elements, and it's a lot of manual labor. And so what I said in the beginning holds true. Have a long-term plan. I think it's much easier for an established brand to go into the food truck business to extend their brand. That's a no-brainer to me. But to be a solo operator or be a one-man show and try to create something out of nothing, you have to be truly dedicated to your brand. And ultimately, you can never invest too much into your brand, meaning your design, your marketing, all that stuff plays a role. When you get into the restaurant business, it's not, it is about the food, but it's also about hospitality, it's about your decor, it's about all these other things. So just keep that in mind when you're in the food truck business.
If you watch the Food Network, I mean that's TV lines. I mean, for the most part, those lines don't exist. I mean, reality is, if you're doing a lunch in San Antonio, I mean, you could do anywhere from 5 tickets to 75 tickets, depending on what's going on at that office building that day. And but when you're watching TV and you're seeing 150 people in line, if you're at a festival maybe, but every day that's not going to happen. So just be realistic. Plan the food you're going to cook and build the truck accordingly.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here, for sharing your knowledge. Thanks.